They have us looking at each other and saying, you're the reason, you're the problem. What do the left says to the right? You're racists, you're bigots, you're white supremacists, you're Nazis. And the right says to the left, you're socialists, you're commies, you're coming to take all my stuff. And it's all a lie. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. All right, where does all of this lead us when it comes to all of this censorship that we have been seeing and all of the banning of platforms and now the calls for impeachment? Well, I think we can expect a resurgence of the Patriot Act 2.0. And I know that might sound alarmist, but I want to remind you that Joe Biden was the author of the original Patriot Act. So that should be scary in and of itself right there. The fact that the man who wrote the Patriot Act, at the time it was called the Omnibus Terrorism Act of 1995. So he wrote it back when he was a senator in 1995. He authored this Patriot Act bill that, of course, did not pass in 1995. And it was just sitting there waiting in the wings. And then 9/11 happened. And after 9/11 happened, and the Republicans were in control at that point, because Joe Biden wrote it when it was under Bill Clinton. And the Republicans were in control after 9/11, and they essentially took Joe Biden's Omnibus Terrorism Act of 1995 word for word, and they just renamed it the Patriot Act. And that is the Patriot Act today. That was authored. It was thought up by Joe Biden. It was his bill, and he championed it after it was passed. He said, who really wrote that was me. They said that it was mostly my language. So pretty scary to think that now there is going to be potentially this Patriot Act 2.0. And let me tell you why I think this might happen. Because, first of all, like I said, Joe Biden have been the person who wrote this. And also the fact that what we're seeing now is this assault on the opposition, on dissent. Now, you might not agree with the opposition, or you might think the dissent is abhorrent, but it doesn't matter. It's what will the reaction be by lawmakers, because you could guarantee that there will be a reaction from lawmakers. They are, because their own home was threatened. Their workplace was the workplace threatened. It didn't. For many of them, it didn't seem to bother them as much when the workplaces of others throughout the summer were being vandalized and burned down to the ground. But suddenly when it is them, it's more sacred for some reason, which I don't agree with. I don't view the Capitol building, which, by the way, was built by slaves. People seem to forget about this. The very people that were like, let's get rid of all of these monuments that have a history of racism. There's the Capitol building built by slaves, and then you've got, at least I think, I know the White House was, because Michelle Obama said that. So I believe it. I believe what Michelle Obama tells me, everything she says, I guess. I should look it up. But I'm sure it was at least built during an era of a lot of racism. And, suddenly their house and their workplace is stormed, and they say, oh, my gosh, we must do something radical in order to prevent this from ever happening. And meanwhile, the rest of us that saw our cities burning down to the ground and vandalized and looted, they say, well, what did you expect to happen? People are mad. So the hypocrisy there is appalling to me. It was all bad. None of it should have happened. And that is where I stand on that. But now what we've got is we have this new administration coming in who has written the Patriot Act in the past. You've got Secretary of State Tony Blinken, who's going to be taking over that office, who was the very man who helped big tech become the new military-industrial complex. So if you're not fully aware of what has happened, big tech used to get very small little military contracts. They weren't valuable. It was more the Boeings and the Raytheons and the Lockheed Martins. And now there's been a shift, because we've seen how big tech can be weaponized. And since our wonderful government officials realized how powerful big tech actually was, they started to give contracts, military contracts, to these big tech companies. And the person who helped them gain those contracts was Tony Blinken. And now Tony Blinken is being named as Secretary of State. And there's also others in the administration who helped alongside Tony Blinken, but he was the founder of the organization, of the consultancy firm that helped these big tech companies secure billions upon billions upon billions of military contracts. And it will only get worse. They are only going to get more of those contracts, because they are, mark my words, the new military industrial complex. We are going to be entering in a new era where Actual traditional warfare is not going to be the norm. It is going to be more behind the scenes cyber. And that is where big tech is headed. And Tony Blinken, our incoming Secretary of State, helped that. So I think what we've seen this 4 years of this escalation of this that will lead to this moment where in the last 4 years, they started off by saying we have to stop Russian disinformation, right? So they said we have to stop the spread of disinformation by maleficent foreign actors. They are the ones who want to harm our country, and we as these American patriots need to get together and stop Russian disinformation. That's how it started. And then it blossomed into stop Nazis. Yes, they might not be foreigners, they might not be Russians, but they're here, they're American, they're Nazis, and now we've got to stop those Nazis. So they weaponized big tech and started bringing them in for congressional hearings. We saw this over and over again. Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey and the CEO of Google and Facebook, all these guys are brought in there, and Congress is yelling at them to, what are they going to do to stop the lies, is what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said to them. What are you going to do to stop the lies? You're going to allow lies on your platform? So then it was stop Nazis, and now it has turned into stop Trump supporters. You got to stop Trump supporters. And you have to remember that big tech donates overwhelmingly to Democrats, to the Democratic Party. They are the massive amounts of big tech donations go to the Democrats and very little go to Republicans. So this is why they are now complicit in helping them get into power. They're complicit in helping them maintain power, and they're going to be complicit in helping them silence dissent. So we now live in a one narrative nation where any thought outside of the approved narrative is silenced, either directly or indirectly, with smears, by calling it conspiracy theory or disinformation. And believe me, now that the Democrats have control of both chambers, albeit by a slim margin, they are going to be calling for measures that they claim are going to be helped to protect our democracy for reasons of national security. Now, reasons of national security is always the key code language. That phrase, reasons of national security, has been used not only by our government, but by governments around the world in order to strip people of their rights. It was the Patriot Act. Why did we have the Patriot Act? And why did so many people on both sides of the aisle champion the Patriot Act? They were calling for it. Millions of Americans said, yes, this is what I want. I want fewer freedoms. I will give you my freedoms for my safety. You have to remember that demagogues don't come along and typically strip populations of their rights. Populations hand the rights over willingly. This is how it happens. They hand those rights over willingly. They say, please protect me. Please keep me safe. Take my rights. That's okay, because we have to stop Nazis. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know any Nazis. I've never met a white supremacist in my life, and I am from Idaho. I am an Asian woman, one of the only minorities in my community growing up. And I can tell you, I don't know a single white supremacist. It is a conspiracy theory. Yes, do they exist? Yes. Are they real? Do they do some harm to people? Yes. But to think that that is our number one threat and that we all should fear them because they're surrounding us, if you can name one, I mean, you would be a rare person. It is dangerous to go down this road, and they will use reasons of national security, and Joe Biden will champion it, and Tony Blinken will as well. And the members of the squad who are right there, they're right there saying we need to get rid of these Republicans. We need to get rid of our opposition. I am shocked that they're calling for this. I am shocked. And I know many people who watch the show that are on the right and have been on the right say, Kim, how could you be so shocked? Well, I am, guys. I'm shocked. I'm really shocked. So I think we should all really watch out for this. And the one thing I think we really, really, really need to watch out for, because big tech has given enormous amounts of money to the Democrats, which is why Democrats are now in their pocket and they're unwilling to regulate them. They're unwilling to make social media a public square utility. The very group of people that should be doing this, they're not. They're instead going the opposite direction. They're calling for more severe restrictions and banning and censorship. And they've taken a ton of money from big tech. The thing to watch going forward in these next years is to watch the Republicans like hawks. Because right now, when it comes to big tech censorship, Republicans are our only hope. Unfortunately, guys, that's just the truth of it, because the squad isn't going to do it. They're calling for more censorship. Of all the people in the Democratic Party, it's actually the squad calling for the most severe restrictions on our rights and freedoms when it comes to this. They're not going to help. So it comes down to the Republicans. They're the only ones. They're our last hope when it comes to censorship from big tech. So the thing to watch is, which direction will they go? Which direction? And we should be holding their feet to the fire. Which direction will they go? Will they continue to fight big tech? Will they continue to fight and say, we're standing up for the freedoms and the bias that is obvious? We're standing against this. We're going to fight. We're going to push. We're going to demand. We're going to force. Right? All those words they're not allowed to use, which might be used against them. And then they're, oh, you're inciting violence. They have us looking at each other and saying, you're the reason, you're the problem. What do the left says to the right? You're racists, you're bigots, you're white supremacists, you're Nazis. And the right says to the left, you're socialists, you're commies, you're coming to take all my stuff. And it's all a lie, all of it. No one's coming to take your stuff. Joe Biden is definitely not a socialist, I could tell you that. And neither is even AOC. You might sit there and say, AOC is a big old socialist. No, she's not. You might not like her. You know, there might be points of contention you've got with her, but she's not. And she might even claim to be a democratic socialist. I think that's a problem. She should have never labeled herself that. But she's not an actual socialist, just like you're not an actual Nazi. We are pointing the finger at each other. It is not where we should be pointing it. I'm going to keep saying it over and over. I'm going to be sounding the alarm and pounding this drum over and over for the next year, 2 or 3 or 4 of this show, that we are not each other's enemy. It is us versus them. And it's not left versus right. It's we the people versus the bought-off establishment. And we need to remember that. We are in this together. Left, right, it doesn't matter. I don't believe you're a Nazi, just like I don't believe you're a socialist commie that's coming to take us down, you crazy person. I don't believe it. We are in this together. I believe that. The way we counter the extremism is we need to take our country back. I'm using fighting words. Shoot, they're going to come get me. We need to peacefully protest for our country back. We need to peacefully lobby our elected officials, and we need to peacefully cast our votes for the right elected officials who will not allow themselves to be bought off by all of these mega corporations who are controlling our lives. The way to counter the extremism is to create the ultimate happiness in the American people. That is how we do it.